What's up? It's going down. Anarchy Splatcast. I guess let's just head inside. Homestuck. So since the last time we played, so last week was the Extravaganza event, which was all sorts of chaos, and we had a bunch of terrible runs, right? We couldn't get past Wave 3. Well, since then... Do I have a screenshot in here somewhere? Oh, right here. Since then, I did get, finally, one run where I was able to do all 5 waves. It only happened once, because I want to say the event ended like an hour after this photo was taken. But I finally did it. And I stand by, the 3rd wave is the hardest. Because the 4th wave was a glowing salmonid, a golden salmonid, and the 5th wave was just a normal wave, but it wasn't nearly as hard of a starting location. So, yeah, that happened. I should have also gotten a splash tag. I thought I did anyways. I thought you're supposed to get a splash tag for that. Maybe do I have to go to Mr. Grizz? Maybe I have to go to Mr. Grizz. Because I don't think I've been back in Salmon. Gosh, what's with all these Homestuck memes? Huh, I swear you're supposed to get something. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, look at that. So we were in the top 50%. You know, for all of our struggles with Big Run to get in even the top 50, I'm glad we had one good run. And there's our sticker, and there's our badge. Okay. You know, it's not the golden badge, but, you know, I'll take what I can get. I'm glad it was a bronze badge. I'm glad we got in the top 50. Now, if only we can do that in Big Run. Rainmaker. If we could just do that once in Big Run. Oh my gosh. Because so far, we've gotten within like 10 eggs of being in the top 50, but we haven't done it yet. It's been stupid close. I want to say it was even within 5 for the first one. But nope, nothing yet. I played it the next day, Extravaganza, and then I hadn't really played. I think I really haven't touched Splatoon since. I mean, I think I booted up the game like the following day. Maybe that sounds right. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just straight up didn't. I kind of don't remember. But yeah, I know. Honestly, it was just that 3rd wave. That 3rd wave was such a pain in the ass. And the 4th wave is a joke. Super easy. Literally gave us 0. Kind of like the 2nd wave. As long as you know what you're doing, it'll give you 0 problems. And then the 3rd wave just wasn't bad. Like, I've done harder, or the 5th wave, I mean. I've done harder 3rd waves than the 5th wave. I think it was because it's more spread out. The problem with the 3rd wave is that everything is clustered up in that one area, and it's just a nightmare to work around. But yeah. Yeah, I really haven't, like, you know, now that I've got my, even though I want to make more perfect gear, I just haven't really had, like, the motivation to do it recently. And I've been playing a lot of Zelda games, which, trust me, we will be talking about tonight. But yeah, I've been playing a ton of Zelda games. So tonight, news story-wise, we have a few things. We had an indie world, so that's one of them. And then there were a few acquisitions, studios buying other studios, which we'll talk about that. And then yeah, WIBE is Zelda. I've been playing a lot of Zelda, specifically 2 games. Well, I mean, I guess we beat Link Between Worlds, but we talked about that last week. Yeah, it's a simple night, you know, probably 2 hours at most. At least that's what I hope. I don't know. I admittedly added like 1 or 2 of these stories last minute, just because I was like, oh, what else happened this week outside of Indie World? Because I legitimately didn't know. Well, outside of our first story. So, speaking of that, so our first story tonight, so there was a rumor that came out early in the week, on like Monday, that, hey, surprise, surprise, it looks like SEGA is in talks to acquire the studio Rovio. You may know Rovio from their video game smash hit Angry Birds, and they did other things, none of them as successful as Angry Birds, and even in recent years, people kind of hate Angry Birds. Mainly because Rovio, like every other mobile game, just became a microtransaction machine. Right? It just became a way to put microtransactions in your video game, and they literally made Angry Bird a worse game by making it go free to play and just putting microtransactions in it. Because that was a story a few weeks ago, is that they took Angry Birds off of the App Store just to make it so that way you had to do their microtransactions, or they're like, oh, you can either wait 5 minutes to play a level, or you can give us money to skip the timer. You know, just awful shit like that. So, yeah, Rovio has not been in the best of lights in recently, and neither I cannot think of a single mobile game studio that has been in good lights. I mean, literally the only good mobile game in existence right now is probably Vampire Survivors, which the developers literally talked about how they had a struggle getting that made, because every studio they approached to do it was like, oh, we'll only do it if you put microtransactions in the game. And they refused and just did it themselves. And that's why Vampire Survivors is the one good mobile game. Yep, I stand by that. So, yeah, so the reason why SEGA bought Rovio, not for Angry Birds, as they explain. They didn't buy it for Angry Birds. They bought it because SEGA wants to make more monetizable mobile games. You know, games that are filled with loot boxes and microtransactions and all that other shit that's popular on the mobile market. So they want to do more of that. And in order to do that, they decided to buy Rovio because they're a studio that has experience doing this. That's the whole reason. I'm not joking. That's legitimately why they did it. Is because they think they can make more money by just buying another studio. It's like, so Xbox is right in the process of buying Activision Blizzard King. And one of the conspiracy behind that purchase has been that what if Xbox isn't buying Activision Blizzard King to buy Activision, therefore getting them Call of Duty? What if instead their real goal is to get King, the developer behind Candy Crush? Because Candy Crush makes a lot of money. And, you know, Microsoft couldn't make a lot of money off of them. And, you know, maybe somehow have them make properties or learn about their tactics that they use to make all these monies, you know, turning players into payers, hunting whales, and, you know, do more of that. I don't entirely agree with it, because at one point Microsoft was given the option that, like, hey, if you just want to buy King, we'll let you do that right now, no questions asked. And they turned that down, which, I mean, again, they're not done fighting for it. Maybe if, like, oh, it's clear that they've lost, and that's, right, that's the option they're given. I'm sure they'll take that up, but that was an option that was given to them at one point. It was like, hey, just buy, or we'll let you buy, there was like 3 options. We'll let you buy King, but not Activision Blizzard. We'll let you buy, I think it was, we'll let you buy Activision Blizzard King, but not Call of Duty. It was a whole thing. It was a whole deal that was made out to them that, of course, didn't happen. I don't know. It's seeming more and more likely that Microsoft is going to buy Activision Blizzard King, right? More and more of these regulatory boards that are, you know, supposed to stop monopolies aren't doing them. Are they? Right, they're not doing what they were created for. At these antitrust boards. Because I think the European Union backed off. It's only a matter of time until the UK is backed off. And then that just leaves America, who are probably going to back off. Probably. I mean, it's America. We love our monopolies here. We shouldn't. It's a fucking disgrace. And it's just another reason this country fucking sucks. But, no. That has not stopped anybody. But yeah, so Sega buying... And this Sega buying Rovio is not going to cause any complaints, right? It's them doing that. It's stupid, but, you know, that's why they're doing it, because they want to make more mobile games, because turning players into payers. So, our next story is Indie World. And So, Indie Worlds, I'm always super excited for. There's always some cool shit at Indie Worlds. I said in the past that an Indie World is successful as long as you walk away with at least one game that you're excited for. Doesn't have to always be a big game. You know, it can be a little small thing. As long as there's one thing you're excited for. Because this isn't a Nintendo Direct, right? You want Nintendo Directs to be filled with amazing announcements. And sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But in Indie World, you just need one thing. And this one definitely qualifies into that. This one definitely had at least one thing I was interested in. But it didn't have much other than that. I'd say this is probably the weakest Indie World I've seen in a while. Because we have had, honestly, in the past few years, we have had some amazing Indie Worlds. There are some Indie Worlds where I've walked away with at least some interest in every one of the games shown. But not this week. Oh, Splatoon 2. This week, I walked away, you know, there's like a few. Some of them are very far away. See, Donkey's Animal Well, which is... I say Donkey's, it's big mode, and it's not like he's the developer, he's the publisher. So I guess let's go through it. So the first game that showed off was Mineko's Night Market? Mineko? I legitimately don't know how it's pronounced. But it visually, it reminds me of a game like Knights and Bikes. Or, what's the other one? Is it Floppy Warriors? Is that the same? No, Floppy Warriors is a different guy. I honestly, probably Knights and Bikes is probably the one I'm looking for. And honestly, as like a game I'd never heard of to start off the show, yeah, not bad. I actually, visually, I'm like, okay, this looks kind of cool. I don't know if the studio that did this have done... Again, I don't know if they had done Floppy Wars or whatever that other game I'm thinking... Or not, I mean, Nights on Bikes or anything else. But, right, I kind of vaguely looked into it. And I didn't see anything that confirmed it. But I'm like, yeah, this looks fine, right? You're a kid, you're at this, like, night market, Spirited Away style, and, you know, you're making stuff to sell at this night market. It looks fine. Right? I think it's a decent game to start off the showcase with. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to be talking about everything, only things that interest me. Next up is Played Up, which I did not know this game was published by the Yogscast. You know, like, everyone made a stink over Donkey starting his own studio. And I guess part of it, or his own publisher. And I think part of that was Donkey going in and being so confident. You know, people hate confidence on the internet for some fucking reason. But, like, yeah, Yogscast also had a game in this showcase that I don't think they, like, were the developers on. I think they're just the publishers. Which, I mean, and that happens all the time, right? Rooster Teeth published Bendy and the Ink Machine. But yeah, so Played Up is, the premise is, what if Overcooked was a roguelite? Right? You and 4 friends running a restaurant, but you know, certain details of the restaurant change every time. I have not played this game, but I have watched, I want to say Chilled Chaos play it on stream. You know, it's kind of interesting, right? The idea of... And it plays very similar to something like Overcooked. There's a little bit more, like... There's a little bit more process with it, because you have to take the food out to people, pick up the plates, take them back. Stuff like that. So there's technically a little bit more involvement in it. But no, it's actually... It looks decent. I mean, visually, it's nothing special. But, like... Gameplay-wise, I'm like, yeah, no, an Overcooked roguelike. Of course, part of me knows that this game is a fucking nightmare. Because Overcooked is very hard. At least the original. The sequel was easier, in my opinion. But the original game was super fucking difficult. And this, making it a roguelike, I definitely see this get... If you do not have the right group of friends, this is impossible. And if you have no friends, I don't even know if you can beat this game. Right? I had to get a really skilled group of people. I've played Overcooked with both skilled people and casuals. And, well, it can be fun with casuals. If you cannot beat that game with casuals. You need... Unless you've already... Right. Like, honestly, it's better to beat Overcooked, the original, with a group of skilled players. And then go back and play it again with casuals. Because, yeah, that game's a fucking nightmare to do with casuals. At least to, you know, beat it. But it's... I like it. I mean, I like Overcooked. I played Overcooked 2. I never beat it. But... And then I know they released both games. And I always hope that in All You Can Eat, they fixed some of the problems with the original game. But I legitimately don't know, because I already owned both games. Why would I buy All You Can Eat? I think I was given it for free at some point. On, like, PlayStation or something. But still... But no, this game looks good, right? I've seen other people play it. If with the right group of friends, I think this can be a lot of fun. But it could also be a nightmare. So yeah. Next up is the board game Calico. Is coming to Switch. So I have played the board game Calico. I have played this game, and yeah, it's you know, they announced that, hey, guess what? You'll be able to customize the cat in the game, and it's about making quilts. And yeah, I like the board game, and yeah, a video game version of that board game, sure, that sounds fine. I know there was the Wingspan board game a few years ago that honestly, you could tell me they're from the same studio, and I totally believe you. Just by the nature of these beasts. Not like, actually, like, the game was, like, the board games are different, obviously. But, like, if you told me the video game versions were made by the same studio, I would totally believe you. It's just kind of one of those things. But no, Calico looks fine. I'm like, yeah, no, it's the board game Calico, which is, yeah, it's a decent board game. Right? It's not one of the best I've ever played, but it's decent, it's fun, it's cute. So yeah, getting it on Switch, that's not a bad idea. So we got... So this trailer started off, and I'm like, okay, it's like a rhythm, like a Guitar Hero style game. But visually, it reminds me of Crypt of the Necrodancer. And yeah, it reminded me of Crypt of the Necrodancer because it's the sequel to Crypt of the Necrodancer, Rift of the Necrodancer. So I own Crypt of the Necrodancer. I own Cadence of Hyrule. I am awful at the games. And I am honestly going to presume I'm going to be very bad at this one as well. I'm just awful at Crypt of the Necrodancer. Like, the game kicks my ass. But they're interesting games. I liked Cadence of Hyrule more personally, just because, you know, taking something that I just struggle with and putting a Zelda coat of paint over it and getting Zelda music, which, God, I love Zelda music so much, that's great. But yeah, no, another Crypt of the Necrodancer. Nintendo, right, the fact that they would let this studio work with their properties means there's something special about them. Nintendo sees something in these developers, so them making another game, yep, go for it. Will I pick it up? Probably not, but I mean, I picked up the previous two, so maybe. I don't know, maybe one day the game will just click with me, right? Crypt of the Necrodancer or Cadence of Hyrule. And then it'll just be like, oh yeah, I love these games now, and I'll pick this up. But that has not happened, because I am awful at rhythm games. Just awful. Next up, we have some DLC. They did like a quick DLC showcase for some already existing games. The game A Little to the Left, which falls under the genre of tidying up simulator, along with a game like Unpacking, is getting some DLC. And I need to play this game. It's on sale right now, and I'm considering picking it up. Because it looks kind of interesting, right? It's a tidying up simulator. You're, you know, getting objects and you're putting them in the right place. It's the puzzle game, right? I like me some good puzzle games, and this looks like a decent puzzle game. So, yeah, no, this one, A Little to the Left, even when because it was revealed in a Nintendo Direct. At least that's the first time I had ever seen it. It looked interesting to me there, and it looks interesting to me here. Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, the puzzle game, which I am awful at. I am just awful at Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, is getting some DLC, which, okay, that's cool, and I think it's free DLC as well. I think all of the DLCs they announced, the 3 of them here, are all free DLC, I think. I don't know, I could totally be wrong about that, but I think they're all free. But yeah, Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon's getting some DLC, and I think it adds Mona to the game, and some other, like, Plague Knight stuff. Looks fine. I have Pocket Dungeon. I'm just awful at it. It's an interesting game, and I saw Dig was on sale, and I do kind of want to pick up Dig, because I am curious about that one, because I feel like I could actually be good at that one, because that one's a roguelite. Technically Pocket Dungeon is as well, but it's a puzzle game for a roguelite center. I don't know. I was just awful at it, so, like, okay. But hey, it getting free DLC is always, right, DLC is always, free DLC can usually be a good thing. You know, specifically indie game DLC. Because, right, indie games won't screw you over. Right? This ain't fucking Activision Blizzard, where they're just trying to squeeze every little penny out of you while playing the new Call of Duty. No, this is like an actual, like, good game doing good stuff. And then the final one is Cult of the Lamb. They talked about Cult of the Lamb's new DLC, where I want to say the developers were talking about how the fact that the game Cult of the Lamb was so successful that they had some ideas for the game that, you know, they couldn't put in the final product because they kind of ran out of money. But the game was so successful that they're now going back and doing those things. You know, stuff like cooking. I know cooking is one of the mechanics. So, you know, that's cool, and I think they said they're giving it away for free. So, yeah. Honestly, all 3 of these DLCs look great. Animal Well, this is the game published by Donkey's publisher, Big Mode. So close. And I still think it looks good. You know, it had been previously announced to be coming to PlayStation, and now it's coming to Switch. I I know when Big Mode, we talked about this at the time, when Big Mode was announced. I have never had a problem with Big Mode. I've had problems with Donkey in the past, right? Some of his videos really annoy me. I've referred to him as a Schrodinger's douchebag in the past, and I still stand by that. But you know, if Donkey wants to go out and use some of his fame and success to publish some indie games, then yeah, sure. And you know, it's one of those things where I don't think there's a way to lose. Like if he publishes a great game, then great, right? Oh yeah, boom, it's another great game. And if he publishes a bad game, well, yeah, so what? It's a bad game. We can just ignore it. Will it hurt his credibility? Yeah, but I also don't trust him to begin with, so you know. But no, I honestly think visually, I think Animal Well looks interesting. And yeah, I guess I am kind of rooting for him and this developer in Donkey's success. Oh, how the turns have tabled over the years. Next up, Crime O'Clock. So I talked about playing the board game Calico. Another board game I have played is one called Micro Macro Crime City. Which is, it's basically, imagine if you made Where's Waldo a cooperative board game. So how Micro Macro Crime City works is you and usually 3 to 4 other people are working together with this giant map. So it's this giant map filled with all sorts of little scenery. Think, you know, again, a Where's Waldo, or for the people who are wrong, Where's Wally? And you're trying to find, like, certain, like, scenes in this map. Like, the starter case is all about this guy who, like, lost his hat. So you have to go find the guy, and you get a card that's like, oh, the guy's in the northwest corner of the game. And then you have to, like, backtrack his steps to find out, like, what happened to his hat, why he lost it, who stole it, stuff like that. And, you know, there's a bunch of different cases. It's an interesting game. Right, I think it's an award-winning game as well. I think it won for like innovation or something like that. I don't know. I like it. I think it's a fine game. You know, nothing. It's a cooperative board game, which, you know, you don't always see those. But it looks like, yeah, they're making it a video game. Now, it's not this game is not called Micro Macro City. It's called Crime O'Clock. But it works the exact same way as Micro Macro City, right? You're given this map, and you're given these clues, and you're trying to solve the crime on this map, right? You're trying to look for the clues, trace your steps. It's, right, basically making Micro Macro a single-player video game. And there seems to be, like, more interactable elements. Like, I think there was one clip where there was, like, a bunch of pots that you had to, like, find and click on and remove. Shit like that. Now, I looked it up. Well, I kind of looked it up. I went to the developer's website. Because I was curious, like, hey, is this being made by the same people? Because even, like, visually, this game looks like Micro Macro Crime City. So I was like, oh, is it the same people who made Micro Macro Crime City? Or just like, hey, guess what? We're now making a board game. And I went to the developer's website. And if they have some sort of deal with the person who made Micro Macro Crime City, they don't say it, right? There's no actual reference to it. But they just look so, like, if they were, gameplay-wise, they were similar, I'd be like, okay, that's one thing. But the fact that visually they look similar, that's what draws me to question it. Right? The fact that just visually they look identical. So there's definitely, and it's not like one for one perfect, but you know, it's pretty close. So I definitely think there is something up there. I just didn't find anything, but I did a very quick Google search. Yeah, Crime O'Clock. Next up, the game, there's a sequel to the game West of Loathing, which was a fine game. You know, I was fine. Called Shadows Over Loathing. Which, at first, I thought it was going to be like, oh, is this like a 1920s... Because West of Loathing was, right, like a Western. And so I was like, oh, is the sequel gonna be right? Is this looks like Gangster? But the title Shadows Over Loathing is a reference to Shadows Over Innsmouth, which is H.P. Lovecraft. And there's even a fish person at one point in the trailer. However, it's also does have all gangsters and bootlegging and flappers and whatnot of the 1920s. I don't know. I thought Shadows Over or West of Loathing was fine, and Shadows Over Loathing looks fine as well. So, yeah. Next up, Blasphemous 2. This was a game we already knew existed, and from what I've heard, it's a fine game. I want to say it's a Metroidvania. That sounds right in my head. Or, you know, probably taking more from the Castlevania than the Metroid side of the West Metroidvania. But it looked fine. And I think I remember people liking it. So the sequel got announced a while ago. And yeah, we got some more of it. I think we probably got a release date. Honestly, for an Indie World Showcase, I want to say most of the release dates were in the next, like, before the end of the year. The only one I remember really standing out was Animal Well, which is not until next year. But, you know, if this wasn't until next year, I wouldn't have been surprised either. I kind of don't remember. But yeah, it looks like more Blasphemous, which I know somebody out there is really excited for it. I don't know, it's a game that I'm sure one day I will give a try, because I have heard good things about it. And then, I think the final thing they showed off, well, they ended with a sizzle reel. But I think the final game they showed off before the sizzle reel was Oxenfree 2. Which, you know, we got like a very brief trailer of that last time. This time we got a little bit more depth. I think we also got a better release window or a release date or something like that. And I've never played the first Oxenfree. I know it's a cult classic. The new one, you know, it might be good. I don't know. I guess I'm not too excited for it, all things considered. Just because I never played the first one. I don't know. There's one game, because I want to say it's like a... Oh, what are those called? I'm pretty sure it's a... is it not point and click? Is it point and click adventure game? Is that what I'm looking for? That's the only word I can think of to describe it. You know, like the Tim Schafer games back in the day. You know, Broken Age. What's the skeleton? Whatever, Day of the Tentacle. Whatever the skeleton one is. That's name I'm forgetting. I think it's a game in, like, that style. At least that's what it looks like. But yeah, you know, it's whatever. And then, yeah, it ended off with a sizzle reel, which, usually when doing these directs, the trick that Nintendo and other studios have learned is that you start with something big and you end with something big. And I feel like the show starting off with Minako's Night Market is like, that's a fine game to start with. The problem is they didn't have anything to end with. They ended with the sizzle reel. And some of the, like, there's a paper folding game in the sizzle reel that looked fine. I was like, yeah, that looks decent. But honestly, the sizzle reel was just kind of like, okay. You have to end with something big. And this showcase just didn't have anything big to end on. Of course, a perfect big thing to end on would have been like Vampire Survivors, or in the lead up, a lot of people wanted Pizza Tower because the developers have hinted that Pizza Tower is coming to Switch. It's just, they say it's not going to be for a long time. But if they had been like, hey, guess what? Pizza Tower is coming to Switch, and they had said 2024, I felt like that would have been a good end to this direct. But because right now everyone's obsessed with Pizza Tower. I don't know. I haven't played it. It's probably going to be the indie game that everyone talks about this year that I don't play. You know, like Vampire Survivors was last year. Even though I put like 20 hours into that one. I'm still waiting for, because, yeah, going into this direct, everyone was super, right, Silksong was never going to happen. Silksong is mainline Nintendo Direct, Xbox Direct, right? Silksong is not an indie direct thing. But the big one everyone was excited for was Pizza Tower. My hope, however, was Vampire Survivors. Because yeah, we still have nothing. I literally talked about it as like a joke months ago now. And yeah, still nothing. Okay, it's probably been like 2 months. But still. Yeah, why isn't Vampire... Like, Vampire Survivors just got another DLC. I heard it's great. But I'm still waiting for the game to come to Switch. And nothing yet. What a shame. One day it will. One day it will, and that's going to be a great day. Oh, part of me wonders if Xbox has a 1-year exclusivity clause. That wouldn't... The fact that it's on Game Pass and it's only on Xbox and not PlayStation definitely makes me think that Xbox has an exclusivity clause. I don't know. I've never seen them say that. But, like, that's honestly the best explanation I can think of. At least it's the explanation that makes the most sense to me. But yeah, I think this is a fine indie direct. Nothing amazing, but nothing terrible either. You know, there's a few games here that look interesting to me, but nothing that blew my socks off or anything. And nothing... And they didn't end with anything big. Right? Because I don't need Pizza Tower or Vampire Survivors. If they had said just like 2023 or even 2024, just having that announcement would have been good enough. I mean, Silksong proves that you can announce something years in advance, and people will wait. Patiently, not really. But they'll wait for it. Of course, right, if they did... I mean, people are still going to keep saying, hey, when's Pizza Tower coming out at every one of these until Pizza Tower comes out. So, you're not saving yourself much there. But I do think Pizza... I don't know. I know very little about the game. It's been described as a WarioWare game to me. Or, not WarioWare, a Wario Land game. You know, like Wario Land 3. Which, I've never played a Wario Land game. And I've never played Pizza Tower, so... I don't know, I've just heard good things about it. Eventually I'll get to... When it comes to Switch, I'll get to it. So, yeah, next year. I don't know, you know, for all my talk about being such a big indie game fan, I'm usually always a year behind. I played Shovel Knight in 2015, when it came out in 2014. I played Undertale when it came out in... Or I played Undertale in 2016, when it came out in 2015... That's just kind of how I am. I'm usually, with the big indie games, I'm usually a year behind. And neither of those were like a waiting for a Switch port thing. Because I played Undertale on PC, and I played Shovel Knight on the 3DS. But yeah, I thought it was a fine indie world. I've definitely seen worse, but I've seen better. But you know... I walked away with at least one game I liked, so I'll take my win where I can get it. So next up... So, early in the week, SEGA announces they're buying Rovio. Later in the week, PlayStation announces they are buying Firewalk Studios. Now, my first thought upon seeing this news was, who's Firewalk Studios? I've never heard of this studio before. And there were a studio formed in like 2018, 2019 by people who used to work for Activision Blizzard and Bungie. So those are some of the old developers. And they've never released a game or anything. I don't even know if they've ever announced a game. But, you know, PlayStation owns Bungie nowadays. So maybe that's part of the reason they're doing it, right? They've clearly got that history in, right, games like Call of Duty and Destiny and whatnot, Halo maybe. So yeah, you know, if they bought up Firewalk in order to support that idea, and you know maybe whatever they're showing behind the scenes looks very promising, then yeah, sure. It's. Again, it's weird. I feel like I know nothing about the studio. I looked them up, and I didn't see any information on them. Right? They don't really do much. Or they haven't really done much since they formed. But, yeah. Or at least they haven't put out a game since they formed. And yeah, that's where that went. I really don't have much other to say than that. Like, we'll just have to see where it goes from here. But they did it, so... So, next up, we got... So, if we're talking about all the publishers here, we talked about Xbox, we talked about PlayStation for like a minute. We talked about Nintendo for like 30. Let's talk about, Xbox. So, a story came out from Jeff Grubb about Hi-Fi Rush. And he basically said Xbox considers, behind the scenes of course, Xbox considers Hi-Fi Rush a disappointment. To give a direct quote, it's based on what I've heard, straight up, didn't make the money it needed to make. So yeah, behind the scenes they consider this a disappointment. Why didn't it make the money it needed to make? Was it a Game Pass thing? Because the game had a lot of buzz. It's, as far as I know, it's like the third highest reviewed game of the year. The only things beating it being Resident Evil 4 Remake, and at number 2, and the Metroid Prime Remake at number 1. Like, legitimately, that's it. I'm sure there's some other game I'm forgetting, but I'm pretty sure Hi-Fi Rush is still rated the highest game of the year. 6 months in. Or, well, I guess 4 months in. So, yeah. Oh my god. Hearing that it's a disappointment, yeah, I would definitely describe that as a surprise. Like, I did not see that coming. Because, yeah, there was a period where everyone was talking about this game. But no, I guess behind the scenes, yeah, it's considered a disappointment. Now, Xbox, since the story did break from Jeff Grubb, Xbox has come out and said that no, they do not consider the game a disappointment. And could that be Xbox trying to save face? Sure. But who knows? I mean, it most likely is, but who knows? I don't know. Again, I still... Because, sometimes you never know why games are failures. Like, I've heard... Right, the rumor is that Mario Maker 2, Nintendo considered that game a failure, even though it sold like 12 million units. So even though this is, right, a critically acclaimed game that seemed to do that everyone was talking about for a few weeks, maybe it just didn't get enough new people to sign up for Game Pass. Maybe that's why it's considered a failure. I don't know. But yeah, Xbox did come out with a statement saying that no, it isn't. Now, when this story broke, I also remember there being a similar story about Halo. That, right, Halo was also considered a disappointment because it was supposed to be this, like, microtransaction... Oh god, what was the word they used? It was basically supposed to be like this microtransaction wonderland or something like that. Right? That it was supposed to be like, oh yeah, people are going to play Halo, it's a free-to-play game, but people will spend money on the microtransactions because, the gaming industry is a fucking hellscape. And it's disappointed as well. Which Halo Infinite disappointing does not surprise me. Right? Xbox commented on Hi-Fi Rush supposedly be a disappointment. I didn't see them comment anywhere that Halo Infinite was supposedly a disappointment. But that does not surprise me at all. Because, yeah, people were hyped for Halo Infinite. And then it just kind of... there's this whole... So I see this narrative in gaming. That, right, if you don't... Right, that, like, 99% of a game's player base has fallen. So that game is considered dead. I think it's... there are some games where I think... Specifically story-driven games. Where it's like when people say, like, oh, yeah, Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy is a failure. I mean, 90% of their player base has dropped. Well, yeah, it's a single-player story game. The people who played the game have beaten the game. There are tons of reasons to have problems with Hogwarts Legacy. Its player base dropping off is not one of them. right? Like, that's not a good reason to shit on the game. But I know with these games that require constant online, having a player base drop by like 99%, I think Multiverses was the example recently, I can see how that can be a problem. But again, it goes back to that thing I say. Why will people start playing your always online game that is, you know, you're trying to make it a job. Let's just cut the bullshit here. You're trying to make your video game a second job. Why would they play your new job when they can just go back to the job they've already put hundreds of hours into, aka Fortnite? Or, you know, they just get so pissed at Fortnite that they abandon it for something else. Right? Like what I did with, Fall Guys. You know, I put hundreds of hours into Fall Guys. And then they ruined the game, and I haven't touched it in at least 6 months. Because, guess what? Splatoon came out. And I've had no reason to play Fall Guys since then. Because Splatoon became my new job, and now it's my job. And I have no intentions of replacing it anytime soon. Because there's nothing that I can replace it. There's nothing worth replacing it with. If that makes any sense whatsoever. But yeah, so Halo Infinite being a disappointment as well. And I heard the story around the same time as the Hi-Fi Rush one, but when I looked it up, I couldn't find it. So I don't know who said this. I just know it was a thing being said. That's good. So I guess that takes us into WIBE. So what have I been playing? Well, let me think. Have I been doing anything other than video games? No, not that I can think of. I mean, there was the finale to Limited Life. It was called Limited Life, right? And that was, you know, that was interesting. God, the TNT minecarts in that. The Skynet. Oh, that was so fascinating. Had a lot of fun with that series. It's a great series. So that was interesting, and I'm not going to spoil who won. Well, no, I'm not even going to say that. But yeah, I do recommend it. It was called... Yeah, it had to have been called Limited Life. Did I watch any new things? No. I haven't been to the movies in weeks. I mean, the next thing I'm going to see is Guardians 4. I'm kind of curious about that Renfield, but maybe. I don't know. I have no intention anytime soon. I went and got a Little Caesars pretzel pizza, which, you know, think whatever you want of Little Caesars. They're cheap pizza that you get exactly what you pay for, right? The quality matches the price. And, you know, cheap pizza is still decent pizza. Admittedly, I have been more disappointed with them in recent years. Like, you know, in recent years, it's gotten more to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'd rather just spend the extra few bucks at, like, Domino's to get a pizza that I will genuinely enjoy. Over something that, you know, it's fun. It's that Brendan Lee Mulligan thing of, are you trying to achieve greatness or avoid disappointment? Right? Oh, are you going to Little Caesars just to avoid disappointment? Instead of trying to get something great that might not be great? So, yeah. But I like their pretzel pizza. And yeah, I got it again. I got the stuffed crust version. And yeah, it was great. So I still enjoy that. Again, I know exactly what I'm paying for. And for what I'm paying for, it's exactly what I expect it to be. Yeah, that... I did that last night, and that was good. So, yeah. What else? I legitimately think that's it. So, I guess that gets us into video games. So, last week I was playing Link Between Worlds. and I was near the end. I had the only dungeon I had left to do was, well, the final dungeon, obviously. And I had, like, one other one. I want to say it was... What dungeon did I have left? I only had, like, one dungeon left. I clearly cannot remember. Whichever one requires bombs. That's which one it was. Whichever one... I want to say that's... Forest Temple? I don't fucking remember. But so I played that, and I did that. And then I was saying last week that I was considering playing Link to the Past again. So after I beat Link Between Worlds, I booted up Link to the Past because, you know, it's on Nintendo Switch Online. And I hated it. I struggled through the game. I died so many times. I didn't actually I only got stuck twice. And that was specifically at some point in the Ice Temple. I just kept going in or I think it's called the Ice Palace. I kept going in circles. And I was just like, okay, I'm clearly missing something. Where am I missing it? And yeah, sure enough, I was missing a chest. I found the chest, and I didn't have to look up anything after that. And then the only other part I got stuck in was... actually, okay, I got three things I had to look up. The second thing was how to get to the Swamp Palace. Because you need to get the ocarina, which I had, but you have to play it in front of a bird statue to get the ability to, like, teleport, or, like, you know, fast travel, basically. And I had forgotten to do that. And that's the only way to get into the Swamp Palace. So I had to look that up. And then the final thing was I got to the final boss. And in the final phase of the final boss, he turns blue. And you can't hit him. And I was like, why can't I hit him? It's because you need the silver arrows. And I didn't get the silver arrows. So I had to leave the final boss. Look up... Right, I looked up, like, hey, what am I missing here? Silver arrows, okay, and then I went and found the silver arrows, which I actually kind of knew where they were, but that was it. So that was the only thing, that was the third thing I had to look up, and it was just, I forgot I needed them. Because the game doesn't tell you that you need them until you fight the final boss. Of course, I think you can get them after Swamp Palace, or whatever. And then, yeah, so I beat the game. So I didn't actually, like, if you remember my last time playing Link to the Past, I got stuck so much more than that. I struggled with the game so much more. Design-wise, I think it is a good game. I liked the dungeons. I like some of the overworld stuff. Did I get stuck for a while trying to figure out how to get into the Forest Temple? Not whatever the Dark World Forest Temple is called. Because I didn't see the two skulls on the opposite of the side of the river that you can hookshot across to. And did it take me a while to figure that out? Yes. That was almost something I looked up. Because I was like, what am I missing here? Why can't I get across this river? And then I figured that out. And yeah. But no, I like it. I like the design elements, the dungeons, all that. My problem with it, though, and the thing that drove me crazy, and it took me a while to realize it. It took me probably halfway through to realize why the game was driving me crazy. It's the combat. I don't like the combat in that game. How it works is basically when you swing your sword. So in, like, modern Zelda games, modern 2D, let's use Link Between Worlds as an example. When you swing your sword, let's say it hits whatever's directly in front of you, and then whatever in front of you to your left or your right. So basically, if everything was like a grid scenario. You know, kind of like this bucket we're using right now. It hits whatever's in front of us, but it also hits what's on the left and the right of us. That's not how the sword works in Link to the Past. Instead, how the sword works in Link to the Past is it hits directly what's in front of you, and then it will occasionally hit something to, I want to say, the left of you, whichever direction your sword swing starts from. And that's it. It doesn't hit to the right of you, and so it's got this very, like, it'll only hit the tile in front of you. And that drove me crazy. So, right, you can, and that, to be fair, that's how it works in Zelda 1. But, to be fair, I had a problem. That's why the 5th dungeon in Zelda 1 is the worst dungeon. Because you come up to that, you see the limitations of that combat system. Only being able to hit the direct tile in front of you. And it can just be miserable. And yeah, I was just miserable fighting enemies here. Because that's only half the problem. The other problem is, when you hit an enemy, it gains some invincibility frames. And during those invincibility, or when you get hit as well, you also get invincibility frames. But during those invincibility frames, an enemy can hop inside your hitbox. So that way when your invincibility frames wear off, they're still inside your hitbox. So they automatically hit you again. So enemies can effectively camp inside of your hitbox and do 3 to 4 hits on you before you can maybe move out of their hitbox and hit them as well. Because when they're inside your hitbox, you cannot hit them. You only hit the tile in front of you. So you basically get enemies that can, stick inside your character and do, some enemies do like 2 to 3 damage. So in like a matter of like 3 seconds, you can have enemies that deal 9 hearts because you get hit by them, take 3 damage, they stick inside of your hitbox, your invincibility frames wear off, they hit you again, you try to run away, but you're not fast enough because the enemy moves just as fast as you do. And then they hit you a 3rd time, 9 health down in a few seconds. It's awful. Honestly, the sword swinging thing is bad. The enemies being able to stick inside of your hitbox is so much worse. It was driving me crazy. Like, I hated it so much. Like, you could not believe. Just enemies just get to stick inside of you and just rack up that damage. And you can try to run away. And you can. But in the process of running away, you're still going to take 2 to 3 hits. You can try to stay inside of them and hit them. You're still going to take multiple hits. Combat was a nightmare. I didn't die an insane amount of times. I kept a constant supply of fairies on me. Right? I got 3 bottles as soon as I could. And I never found the 4th one, but I got 3 as soon as I could. And I just stocked them up with fairies and red potions. Because I had so much money. And it never really became... So, like, there were entire dungeons that I just, like, struggled with, where I never died once. But I still, like, I had to leave the dungeon to go grab more fairies or another potion or something. So that sucked. Honestly, with, like, classic games like Link's Awakening or Super Metroid, I'm usually hesitant of a remake because, people really like these games. And I feel like it's very easy to fuck up a remake like this. If they remade Link's Awakening with the exact same engine they did the Link's Awakening... If they remade Link to the Past with the same engine they used to remake Link's Awakening a few years ago, I legitimately think it would only make the game better. Because I'm assuming that would fix this problem. I mean, of course, they could always code it back in, and that sounds like a fucking nightmare. But Link's Awakening doesn't have that problem. So much so that I was like, maybe this is just how classic Zeldas worked. Because I kind of remember Zelda 1 working like this as well. Where, you get hit, or at least the sword. I remember the sword working the exact same way in Zelda 1. So, because, I have Nintendo Switch Online, I just booted up Link's Awakening on the DS, or on the Game Boy Virtual Console thing. And no, Link's Awakening plays how I think it should. The sword hits those 3 spaces in front of you. Enemies can't spawn camp within you. Right? Like, it doesn't work like that's how it works in the remake. But that's how it works in the original as well. So this is specifically a problem with Link's Awakening. Or with Link to the Past, I mean. So many links, man. So many links. So yeah, I am now... Like, I don't think Super Metroid needs a remake. I'll stand by that. Link to the Past needs a remake. I honestly think if they do a remake... And, you know, I totally got stuck at in that ice palace. There's the sliding staircase. I totally got stuck there for the 30 seconds or whatever. I'm sure I have that clip somewheres. Of me just fixing those minor problems, you know, getting a better hint system in the game, kind of like Link's Awakening has. Yeah. So I don't hate Link to the Past. I do not hate Link to the Past. I just do not think it's as good as a game of Link's Awakening. Even comparing the original Link's Awakening to the remake. No, I'll still stand by Link's Awakening as the better game. But, you know, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Link to the Past more this time than I did the last time I played it. So I'll at least give it that. But God, the combat drove me crazy. Oh my God, it drove me crazy. Oh, perfect. So let me see what pictures I have here. Once this reloads. I should go get more water, but you know, I'm not going to. Okay, so let me see. What pictures have I taken? We'll talk about that one next. So, let's see what this clip is. So this is that ice palace staircase. And I'm pretty sure this is just 30 seconds of me trying to get into. The last time I played Link to the Past on stream, I did not have this problem. I did not have this problem at all. We got into the staircase on my first try. Not this time. Not this time. I honestly don't even know if I get into it by the end of this clip. Nope, I don't. Okay. So I beat the game. We died once in the castle, once in dungeon, once in East Palace, 2 in Desert Palace, 9 times in Mountain Tower, 3 in Dark Palace. I didn't die once in Swamp. 3 in Skull, not in Thieves' Time, not in Knives Palace, not in Misery Mire, not in Turtle Rock, and I didn't die in Ganon's Tower? I guess the final boss doesn't count. And so, yeah, I only died 20 times. But I still... So, even with me not dying in the second half of the game, right, for these last few dungeons, I still thought it was a nightmare. Like, oh my gosh, I still hated the combat. I was... Luckily, there's that fairy fountain right next to Link's house. But I was going to it constantly. Specifically, that one, and there's this one rock in Death Mountain, where if you dash into it, it always gives you a fairy. I used that one so many times as well. But yeah, no, oh hey, it's the new map! I've played on this map only twice. And that's 2 times total. That's not like 2 rotations. I've played on this map 2 times total. But yeah, that was Link to the Past. I'm all aboard a remake of it. Admittedly, I would rather have an Oracle's remake before a Link to the Past remake. But, God, I would hope a Link to the Past remake using the Link's Awakening engine would fix all my problems with the game. It just drove me crazy. But God, I love Link's Awakening. I've realized Link's Awakening is an amazing game. Would I change... So I know we did a Zelda tier list last week. Would my position for Link to the Past on the Zelda tier list change? No. I still probably stand by where I put it. I think I put it at B somewhere. I want to say I put it at B, maybe low A. No, wherever it was, I stand by it. I may not remember, But wherever it is, yeah. I think I put it in B. So that's that. So the other Zelda game I picked up. Well, okay, so I tried to pick up Advanced Wars. I went down to the shop, I went down to the Tesco to buy a copy of Advanced Wars, and they didn't have any copies. What? The game had just come out. Like, they had an ad for the game, but they didn't have any copies of the game. And then, so that was yesterday. Today, I went to a different store, and they didn't have any copies either. Nobody has physical copies of Advanced Wars. So yeah, I don't own Advanced Wars. Another game that I have tried to buy that they just don't have any copies of. And it's not like, oh, well, we sold out. No, they just never got any. Which part of me... So there's been a story that broke that I guess the physical copies for this game were made a year ago. So people trying to redeem the My Nintendo reward points for the game can't get them because the physical copies are more than a year old. And you can only redeem My Nintendo rewards for a year after the game releases. So that was a story that, I wasn't bothered talking about, but hey, that was a thing that happened. So yeah, I don't know if they just... If maybe they only gave them to, like, digital retailers or, stuff to sell online only, but no physical store near me has a copy. Admittedly, I did not check Best Buy. That was the one place I didn't check. But yeah, no, nothing. So, yeah, even though I want, even though I'm not a huge Advanced War fan, I still want to support people who are. Because I'd like to hope that people who are, right, because they deserve new games, right? It's been 15 years since the last Advanced Wars. They deserve something special, and if this remake does well, then we'll probably get a new one. And if we, and I'd like to, and I say the same thing about Rhythm Heaven. If they ever make a new Rhythm Heaven game, I will buy it. Not because I'm a big fan of Rhythm Heaven, but because Rhythm Heaven fans know what it's like to be mistreated by Nintendo. And so if I come out to support them, I know they'll come out and support me as well. At least that's what I hope. So when Pikmin comes out in July, all you Rhythm Heaven fans, all you Advanced Wars fans, all you F-Zero and Golden Sun fans, come out and support Pikmin 4. Because when your game comes out, I will be there to support you as well. So yeah, that's kind of the deal I make. So yeah, I'm gonna find a way to get a copy of Advanced Wars. But right now I'm having no luck. But the game I did pick up, because I'd been saying I was going to, was Hyrule Warriors. Because I did not own Hyrule Warriors on the Wii U, I did not buy the 3DS version, and I did not buy the Switch version. Because I did not consider myself a Warriors fan. Right? Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, I am not a fan of those games. And I still technically don't, but I liked Breath of the Wild. So I picked up Age of Calamity. And I really liked Age of Calamity. So I was always kind of, even though I've heard Age of Calamity is the better game, because it fixed some of the problems that Hyrule Warriors had, I was still always kind of curious about Hyrule Warriors. Specifically because someone who is a fan of the series, of the Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, James Stephanie Sterling, said that in their opinion, Hyrule Warriors was the last great Musou game. Because Dynasty Warriors 9 sucked, whatever Warriors game came out, I want to say Samurai Warriors, something, garbage as well. So Hyrule Warriors was kind of the last great Musou game. Of course, Age of Calamity, from what I've heard, is better. And yeah, after playing a few hours of Hyrule Warriors, I would agree. I like the focus of Age of Calamity. I like the whole, hey, guess what, it's 100 years before Breath of the Wild. I know people didn't like the time travel stuff. I have no problem with the time travel stuff. But even, like, gameplay-wise, it feels tighter. It feels more focused. Some of the problems I have with Hyrule Warriors were fixed in Age of Calamity. But I'm still enjoying Hyrule Warriors. I still think it's a good game. Yeah, no, I legitimately might be a Muso fan now. I mean, again, I hear all the modern games are garbage. And, you know, if that ever changes, then yeah. You know, if James Stephanie Sterling ever comes out and they say, guess what, the new one's good, then yeah. But from what they've said, Koei Tecmo and whatever other team does the games, they don't give a shit about their own franchises. However, when it comes to making a Nintendo franchise, they put their heart and souls into it. It's basically it's kind of like... I guess Nintendo treats Koei Tecmo the same way they treat Illumination, right? Koei Tecmo may not give a shit about itself, but Nintendo does, and Nintendo will make sure they make a good game. Illumination may not give a shit about themselves and may put out garbage movies, but Nintendo does give a shit, and they'll make sure they put out something good. So yeah, but no, so far where am I in the main story? So there's like it's called like Legend Mode or something like that, and it's basically a story mode. And I just beat what I'm assuming is Act 1, which is where you start off the game, you go find Sia, she brings over the pieces of the Ocarina of Time world, Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess world, you go to all three of those worlds to close the portal, go back to Sia, find her bedroom filled with pictures of Link, and then defeat her. But hey, plot twist, Ganondorf's back. Even though technically Ganondorf comes back earlier. But, you know, Ganondorf. And now you're playing as Ganondorf. That's where I'm at. I just unlocked the ability to play as Ganondorf. Technically, that's not true. Because this game does a weird thing where it actually starts you off with all of the story characters. So, like, any character you unlock during the story, you already have at the start of the game. So, like, oh, in the first mission of the game, I was unlocking weapons for Fi and, like, Zant right at the start of the game, which was very weird. I don't know why they did that. But they did. I mean, part of me thinks, right, this is the definitive edition, so maybe if you're playing, like, the adventure mode or whatnot, because I don't think that was in the original. I don't remember. I could totally be wrong about that, but I don't remember that being from what I'd heard. But yeah, so you start off with technically all the characters. But yeah, right now I'm just working my way through the story mode. I know there's also the adventure mode. I don't know. I know these Warriors games are just filled with content. And that was like the original game. I remember people, probably also James Stephanie Sterling, they were talking about how the original Hyrule Warriors is one of the few examples of good DLC in a video game. Right? I always said Mario Kart was one of the few examples of good DLC in a video game. But yeah, Hyrule Warriors the same as well. So that's not, like, I haven't even touched the DLC stuff. I remember Gerard the Completionist once saying, at least at the time the game released, so back in, 2014, I remember Gerard saying that it was one of the longest games to complete for him. I want to say, like, again, 2014... But I want to say it took him a few hundred hours. I was not the hardest. I want to say the hardest was Catherine. At least at the time. But I want to say, yeah, it was one of the longest, if I remember correctly. It was a few hundred. I want to say at least 200, if not longer. I don't know. I doubt that original video still exists anymore. Because, you know, all of Gerard's old videos got taken down because of the falling out. But no, so far, you know, I don't know. I don't know how many hours I am into it. I don't feel like I'm that... Just playing the story. Because unlike Age of Calamity, where you had, like, every main story mission you beat, it unlocked, like, 30 side missions. Yeah, no, this game doesn't work like that. You go from story mission to story mission. There's a few, like... I'm assuming all those, like, side mission stuff are in the adventure mode and the challenge mode. which I'll get to, you know, presumably after I do the story mode. But no, I do definitely think, yeah, Age of Calamity is probably the better game. But I am enjoying Hyrule Warriors, and yeah. But we'll get to the story mode eventually. I know it's like a whole Zelda 1 thing. And there's like so many other characters that, yeah, I just haven't seen yet. Like Tingle, Marin, all the Wind Waker. The Wind Waker stuff wasn't even in the original game. That was in the 3DS port. But it's here. So... yeah, I'll get around to it eventually. Oh, shit. Yeah, no, so far I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I definitely... I know, there's just so much content in these Warriors games. And that's kind of a great thing, honestly. Like, the more you think about it, the more you're like, yeah, you know, if you want all that content, well, it's right there. And if you don't want it, yeah. I don't know, I definitely feel like I'm more free to do stuff in this, go from story mission to story mission. Whereas in Age of Calamity, it was like, oh, you did a story mission, now go do 30 side missions, then do the next story mission. Whereas here, it's just story mission to story mission. Levels still take around the same length of time and whatnot. But, yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think I'm a fan of these games. Even though, yeah, I definitely, if you had asked me in 2014 when the original game came out, I was like, no, I do not care for games like that. You know, this means I'm probably a Monster Hunter fan. Because I always say, you know, Monster Hunter games just don't seem like the type of game for me. But, if I said it here, well, unlike rhythm games, that I know I am not a fan of. Right? Like, I know I don't like rhythm games. Because I've played a bunch of them. Whereas here, it's like, yeah, it happens. You know, I'm probably just going to leave it off there. So yeah, I think this is where we're going to call it for tonight. Well, we should go check out a few things, but you know what I mean. Get my drink coupon and whatnot. Man. So, my goal is tomorrow we'll be back with Zelda, and we're going to do Von Boris. That's the goal tomorrow. We'll be back with Breath of the Wild. We've got the next Divine Beast to do. So, that's the plan tomorrow. We'll see how that actually goes, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. And then, so next time we do Von Boris, and then I think the stream after that. So I think next part is part 10. Part 11 is probably going to be the final part. Well, I mean the final part of the main story. Because then we have to do the DLC. Which I don't know how long the DLC is. Oh, we got Uggs. And we got that shirt. We got Uggs. But no, I'm pretty sure next part is Fauna Boris. And then the part 11 will just be wrapping up any loose ends, fighting the final boss again. Like, we still have to find the last memory. Because I still have no idea where that is. Is that the... no, I think that's the second part. I think so? I don't think I have the samurai hat. No, I don't. Because it'd be first up. Like, you can see the boots, you can see the thing. No, okay. But yeah, and then we got and then I don't know how long the DLC will take. Will it just be one more part? Will it be multiple parts? Am I going to do every shrine? Am I going to do Terry Town? We'll see. Because that would totally be a loose end thing. Is Terry Town for part right before we fight the final boss again. And then Tears of the Kingdom comes out the 12th. Oh, look at that Kenny. That's a nice Kenny. Is that all? For a second, I was like, wow, do they have so much Intensify action up? It wasn't as much as I thought. But yeah, and then... now, I do not, and I've said before, I don't know when I'm streaming Tears of the Kingdom. Oh, it's her. Because, according to wherever I pre-ordered it from, My copy's not coming in until the 16th. So I'm probably going to have to wait an entire weekend where I can't play it and I can't go on Twitter. And oh, that sounds like a nightmare. That's probably what's going to happen. We do also have the Zelda Splatfest. I think that's in 2 weeks. So not next week, but the week after that. I want to say it's a week before the game comes out. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's it. You know, we'll as always be back with more in chat. I made bronze rank. I made bronze rank. I know it's not gold. It's not even silver. But as someone who has struggled to even get in who has struggled to get into the top 50%, I'll take my victories where we could get them. Especially when every match before then had been awful. One good game. I just had one good game. And I tried to play with the same team again, and nope, they had all disconnected by the time the next thing had started. So it just didn't happen. But for that one game, I get why they didn't want to do Extravaganza with randos. But the next time they do Extravaganza, just let us do it with randos. I mean, we still find a way, because life finds a way. But just make it easier on us next time. I don't know, we'll see. But, I say that, but I also totally get that some of those, that third challenge was so forking hard. I kind of get why they want bigger collaboration. Right? Why they want people working with your friends, so that way you can talk to each other and work together. I get that. But yeah, so this is where we're going to end off. I'll be back tomorrow with Zelda, hopefully. But until then, I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.